intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So, and you may or may not be able to answer my last question, and maybe we get into a skiff at the next hearing that we have, but who in the government, either what agency, sub-agency, what contractors, who should be called into the next hearing about UAPs, either in a public setting or even in a private setting? And you probably can't name names, but what agencies or organizations, contractors, et cetera, do we need to call in to get these questions answered, whether it's about funding, what programs are happening, and what's out there?
I can give you a specific cooperative and hostile witness list of specific individuals that were in those.
And how soon can we get that list?
I'm happy to provide that to you after the hearing.
Super. Thank you. And I yield back. Intelligent extraterrestrials.
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So, and you may or may not be able to answer my last question, and maybe we get into a skiff at the next hearing that we have, but who in the government, either what agency, sub-agency, what contractors, who should be called into the next hearing about UAPs, either in a public setting or even in a private setting? And you probably can't name names, but what agencies or organizations, contractors, et cetera, do we need to call in to get these questions answered, whether it's about funding, what programs are happening, and what's out there?
I can give you a specific cooperative and hostile witness list of specific individuals that were in those.
And how soon can we get that list?
I'm happy to provide that to you after the hearing.
Super. Thank you. And I yield back.
Wow. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first Tism Skism in years. Rick is already on board. How you doing, Rick?
I am good.
Man, this alien thing
is
is driving me
I
crazy.
think it's months.
Yeah, it feels like years, though. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
So, are you ready to talk about some alien crap?
I guess.
No, I'm like dead serious, man, because I've been thinking about this, all right? So, in America, we have this huge thing about John F. Kennedy Jr. He was assassinated, right?
Yeah.
And the argument has always been one shot or multiple shots, you know, the magic bullet. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Just on a surface level.
So in theory, if it was one bullet, it had to do some amazing maneuvering as it wounded Kennedy in different spots, right? Theoretically impossible without having a second shot. At least that's what we were told.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what you're told.
Right. Now, I was watching testimony on the technology of the alien ships and people who were speculating how it could be done and how, you know, folding time and space and how that makes the ship seem erratic to us. And I was thinking, if they have technology that can float stuff like that, they could make a smart bullet that knows how to bounce around or could be controlled remotely inside a body to bounce around and kill someone. Now, that's really
or at least you think.
Well, that's really far-fetched. It's based on a lot of speculation. Yeah. But then let's talk about JFK for a second and how the papers on the investigation of his assassination were supposed to be unlocked some time ago. It was supposed to be 50 years after his assassination, and they're still refusing to release the information on that. So why are they refusing to release that? And I don't know, could it have anything to do with the aliens? Because I remember, back in 94, I had a school teacher, a professor, who was telling me that JFK was part of a huge conspiracy thing, and that's why he was assassinated. According to that conspiracy theory, he was killed because he was going to announce to the public a study called Iron Mountain that basically dictated that American citizens would have to be treated like cattle in order to sustain a civilized society and all this stuff. And in theory, that would be why he was killed, because the CIA couldn't have him, doling that information out to the American public in general. Now, whether or not that's true, that's another conspiracy theory. But if he was going to reveal something and aliens didn't want to be revealed yet, oh my goodness. That could be why they're not telling us anything, because they still haven't revealed the aliens 100%.
Yeah. And then, of course, there is, if they just want to promote this alien idea when there's not aliens, what a great way to promote it by not releasing something when there's nothing in it, just to make you think something's in it.
Yeah, well, it could be a psyop. That's the whole other thing. This whole thing could be a psyop, but it would be thinking in a level that I can't fathom. What would they gain by a stupid psyop like this?
Yeah, well, I don't know in the long run what they could gain, but as much as they don't want people to think there's aliens, there becomes, I guess, some certain advantages in making people think there is, and again,
sorry, I needed that.
I will say myself, I do believe on life on other planets. Whether that life has visited Earth or not is another question.
Well, let's go there for half
a
a second too, because I know that there's a lot of concern that people aren't talking about for the religions of the planet, because the idea is that this could undermine everything that we've been taught through our religions, particularly if the aliens are claiming responsibility for the religions, which is a theory that I've heard a lot of. And to that, I kind of giggle, because we were warned right in the scriptures that, Lucifer is going to come and try to make this a one world deal. And we know that he has no worries about crapping all over God and creation. And they would have no problem trying to work their way into that story and take credit for it. So I've already talked about this with Diana, and my thought is, no matter what they claim, I'm sticking with God. I'm sticking with Jesus. And even if it was all fictional, I don't give a damn. It works. And the Lord has been good to me, and I am not about to reject him because a couple of freaks with a fancy airship have, come down to the planet and scare everybody.
Because, no matter what, somebody had to create everything. There's still a creator, and, the best creator that I can find is scripture, Christian scripture. It makes the most sense and all that.
Well, what cracks me up is I've already run this through my head, and I can see exactly how they could claim to be responsible for everything. And then I can see how God would thwart that all on their butts. You know what I mean? Like, I could see how fallen angels would have this perception and they think they're smart. And then God says, oh yeah, watch this. Just like I always go back to destroy the temple in 3 days and I will rebuild it. Now we kind of look at that and go, well, of course he was talking about his own body. And we act like we're all smart and stuff, but God will say things that don't make any sense to us. And we try to figure it out. And until we know, it doesn't add up.
Well, and obviously the people of the day thought he was talking about the temple there, which, and of course we, as you said, we Christians say that he was actually talking about his body. But, what I more mean is, even in the aliens tried to say that they created humans and all that. Well, who created them?
Right. Yeah. But I think wholeheartedly that we were created by the breath of God, by the voice of
Oh
God.
yeah, same here.
And how that works into their understanding, I have no idea. But I have no concern either. Jesus came for mankind, and
Yeah.
I am confident in that. I'm not worried about what's happening with the Martians. Forgive me for the stereotypical name, but I'm not really concerned about that. I'm interested in it. I'll go hog wild on it. I'm watching all this stuff. I'm getting all excited. I go
Yeah.
outside and I'm looking in the skies for cubes and ovals flying around the sky. But I'm doing all of that with the knowledge that, man, the war's already won. I'm down with Jesus, and this stuff is like exciting. We haven't had anything like this truly probably since Roswell. That was the first time, and maybe even the last time, America's really had a confirmed something weird just happened moment. There's been a lot of sightings, but until these things have been testified to in court, it hasn't been official. And now I know all the testimony, it could be liars, it could be psyops, it could be another trick of somebody else. I don't know. But the fact that they're in the court of law as sworn testimony does carry weight with me.
Well, the question is their hearings are not exactly a court of law, although they're very treated like such. So I could be wrong.
I think they're sworn into their testimony, though, is sworn. I believe it's
yeah, but even if they quote unquote perjure themselves, I don't think there's anything that could happen to them like in a real court of law. But I could be wrong. I think
there is, because it's congressional, but I'm not positive. Hang on, let me look it up. Congressional witness perjury. Let's see what happens. We have Google, which is the ultimate attorney, right, everybody?
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so it is a federal crime to lie to Congress under oath. It's illegal to make false statements to them. However, it looks like it's pretty easy to squirm out of in plea deals and stuff. I'm not reading the whole article, but they have what happened to 5 guys. And none of the 5 guys that lied to Congress ended up in prison except for Michael Cohen on some other unrelated charges. So perhaps it's one of those crimes that are just kind of like, bad boy, don't do that again. Although if it was Trump, that they would be charging him for life with it.
Yeah,
there, I said it.
It's probably who they're doing it. It's probably all depends on who's doing the lying.
Right. And don't think that both sides don't lie, folks. If you're out there going, there's a good guy, I wouldn't be so sure, because let's look at one of these other things about the aliens and the U.S. Congress. This has been a bipartisan reveal, meaning that many representatives and senators have seen this information, seen the videos, seen the photos, heard the testimony that we are not privy to, and they are still keeping whatever it is secret. They're not denying, they're not confirming for the most part. They're just letting this unfold. Why are they doing that, Rick?
Well, there's also the possibility, that to get this information that they've been signed an NDA. So if they break it, there could be legal action.
Now, wouldn't that be interesting? Why would you I understand why they would sign it, but why would the government want that? There is more to this than meets the eye.
I would say it's the government making it.
Oh, yes.
NDA.
I agree with you totally. But now I'm questioning their motive. And obviously we have the obvious, well, they don't want to cause panic. They don't know what they really got. Or maybe they know exactly what they got. And it's terrifying to someone who is blinded to it, has never seen it. But honestly, with them not giving us the details, doesn't it make it worse?
It's as bad, I would say. The thing is, oh yeah, we got a spaceship that crashed years ago, and we got, some of their dead bodies. Yeah, that's not going to cause a panic.
Well, now get this, okay? That's one thing. That's Roswell that you're talking about.
Well, no, I'm just talking Roswell anywhere, because, there's been, various reported things,
That's the thing. Like, since they've started talking about this stuff, crash retrieval has been going on for decades with a capital D. That's tens of years. I've heard reports that it's known to have been happening since the 1930s. So in theory, we've had connection with these extraterrestrials or non-humans for almost 100 years. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up, because they keep not saying extraterrestrial. They keep saying non-human. That opens up my imagination to two things, and that is the flat earth and the hollow earth theories, right? So hollow earth is kind of easy to understand. They claim that there's caverns under the earth that can sustain life and has sustained life, right?
Yeah. Also, it brings up one other possible type of entity.
Spiritual?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the second one I was thinking of was the ice wall. Have you ever heard that one?
Yeah, I've heard about that, but
with the continents outside of it?
Yeah.
Now, wouldn't that blow minds if that was true?
Yeah, but one, that doesn't line up with scripture.
Oh, it doesn't line up with anything. It's incredibly bizarre.
Yeah, the whole ice wall, it doesn't line up with scripture. What reason do you have to say it's spherical if it's not? It's mind-boggling stupid to use that. Like, everybody's lying to you. There's no Australia yet.
Well, the other possibility I was thinking about with the ice wall deal, right, is that we are part of a globe, but it's a much bigger globe than we know. And somehow, now this is where how would that work? Somehow we've gone into orbit of this globe and not realized that we are just this little section surrounded by ice. That seems impossible, but that would kind of be what it would take, right? It would have to still be on a globe. And somehow we've just never noticed, we're up there, doing our first laps in orbit. We don't notice, hey, we just went over the ice wall and there's these really cool continents nobody's ever seen. No, something else is happening there. But those are possibilities. In the spiritual one, are you talking like interdimensional travel, like the spiritual is finding a way to manifest in the flesh?
Well, obviously, I'm talking about angels and demons, probably more likely demons and angels. But we know demons and angels can manifest in the physical world. We see that throughout scripture. So it has some demon contacted, the government or whatever. Are they dealing directly with some spiritual entity, demonic entity?
Exactly, man. And it's funny because I'm looking at our viewership right now and it's not very high. And I know I didn't give a lot of announcements or anything, but people seem to tend to be afraid to talk about this. And it's something I've noticed on Twitter. The people who do talk about it are all saying, why isn't everybody talking about this? Yeah. And it's almost like, I think there's this general attempt to deny it. Okay, whatever's happening, I'm not going to have to believe it until they put it on video, until there's a press conference with the diplomat from, Orion 9, sitting there with Joe Biden, who's going, and the ambassador is just kind of looking around like all the human ones do, because it's going to be embarrassing. But there were other things okay, so did you see Mitch McConnell have his little stroke in front of the camera a couple of days ago?
No, unfortunately, I don't watch most of that.
So he came out, and it was a typical standing in front of a podium.
Who is he exactly?
He is one of the ancient senators in the U.S. Congress. I think he's 80 something, and he looks like a turtle.
Oh yeah. I think I remember hearing about that. He just stopped talking all of a sudden.
He came out and he shut down in mid sentence. And what was interesting was it's interesting because you said something just a bit ago, but he said something about, we have just prepared all the NDAs, and then boom, he went silent. And I thought to myself, what if the powers that be, whether they're alien, human, or a combination of, press a button and just shut his brain down and shut him up before he said something he wasn't supposed to? And when I was letting my imagination roll, I noticed that there are also been videos on Twitter of people in congressional hearings recently, and they're sitting behind senators who are asking questions, and they're lipping the questions while the questions are being read, which is explained through writing. But there was one girl who actually lipped the senator's misquote. In other words, she was reading and read it wrong and went back and read it again. And the person sitting behind her actually did the exact same motions. And I thought to myself, what if there are aliens controlling minds? They tune into a frequency. And if you're sitting too close, you're going to pick up those same signals like a radio. And they were feeding the woman this speech, and the woman behind her is just receiving the same signal, not aware. Now, I know this is all silly, but it's not in the sense that if you use your imagination a little, you can see the possibilities, bro. They're everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
So anybody out there who's watching who wants to join, the link is at the top. If you join, we will go through a series of tests to make sure you're not some weirdo. But everybody's welcome to join the show. And actually, I would think that if you're talking about aliens, you might be considered a weirdo. Weirdos are kind of welcome. We just don't want trash. So where else can we take this? I mean, obviously, it's not generating a lot of conversation.
Yeah, we're almost too much on the same wavelength.
Well, in a way, I just wanted to get this stuff off my chest, because every time I post it on Twitter, it's almost like in a quiet echo chamber.
Yeah. Well, if we're talking about aliens, Melvin 3 launched today on Fun My Comics by Timothy Olsen.
Now, is he an alien?
Melvin is.
Gotcha.
So, sort of goes along with the topic. And he's not from Earth, and there is technically no Earth apparently in his universe, or Earth used to exist, but this is, hundreds or thousands of years later.
Right. Well, it's kind of like with Cyclopean. I'm actually going to be working that into the script, the whole alien news thing, because he's supposed to be an alien, supposed to have been government raised. And it's going to allow me an opportunity to kind of pursue the storyline of whether or not he truly is alien, which I'm excited about, because I've been trying to figure out how I can introduce that. And honestly, the world is so crazy right now that it fits fiction better than it does reality.
Yeah. I know eventually I'm going to have aliens in my universe.
Well, maybe you already do, and they haven't revealed themselves. Scrolls everywhere. No.
Yeah, and there's something that just ended too.
Yeah, and I heard it was pretty horrible, but I haven't watched it.
Yeah, it was not very exciting show.
You got to see it?
Yeah, I watched it. It was 6 episodes.
So Nick had sex with a Skrull?
Apparently, yeah.
See, that's weird, because to me, that's like Hollywood projecting. So are they saying we need to have sex with aliens? And if they are, folks, we need to be cautious, because interspecies sex sounds like a bad recipe.
Yeah, well, obviously, we don't know how things would turn out, for something like that.
Well, I got to be honest, and I'm going to say something that might be shocking.
And actually, that might be right at that point. It would be race, because we're human; they're
something not human. But there is something that I have noticed, and I won't name names, but I have noticed that a lot of the celebrities in the new generation have their eyes set really wide. And I'm beginning to wonder if there hasn't already been some cross species contamination. Now, I know that's speculation and horrible. Don't say that about people. But I'm like at a point where nothing in this world is going to surprise me, between vaccines and viruses and gender fluidity and all this other stuff. It would not surprise me if aliens are real, that they've already begun the attempts at cross mating. And the thought of that is horribly crazy. Diana says my imagination is crazy.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that could easily be, although it would seem weird, is it could be part of genetics from from people long ago, because I'm not sure how much you would believe this, but I believe humans used to be a lot bigger. You know, apparently there's lots of giant skeletons that they found, but they keep hidden. And but before the flood and maybe up to just a little bit after the flood, I think most humans were probably all over 10 feet tall.
That would be interesting. I don't know about that, but it's possible. I mean, when we look back, especially through a biblical spectacle, we got to remember that we're being told about these things through ancient minds who had to write it out the way they comprehended it. And
Yeah.
they didn't have everything we have. Like, there was nobody with a ruler or a tape measure out there going, all right, Kane, hold up. Let's see how many inches you are.
Yeah, well, actually, that's not quite true. They didn't have inches, but they had cubits. That was their standard. Now what?
Now, how big is a
Nowadays,
cubit?
well, nowadays it's accepted that a cubit is what would be 18 inches. Now, if
That's
they were,
what's accepted, but do they know?
yeah, but there is stuff showing that what Israel and Egypt had for a cubit, but
Is it real, Israel? Get it?
yeah, yeah,
Showing
but
Israel.
yeah, I get it. But if you go before the flood and everybody's, like 10 feet tall, or taller, then a cubit could technically be bigger, because it's supposed to be from your elbow, I think, to either somewhere on your hand or just below your hand.
Right.
That's what a cubit is supposed to be. A span is supposed to be something to do with your hand. I think it's from your thumb to your baby finger, the tips, the measurement.
But that would be assuming everybody was made the same size, right? I mean, that may be what they were using, but it had to have like a variable of a plus and minus X amount of inches, or
There's obviously some variables, but like you take a bunch of people, and there's going to come out like a somewhat of an average. And I guess they figured, because of people nowadays, their length and all that, from their elbow to whatever on their arm, towards their hand, it is like about 18 inches.
There is something interesting about that. So you would be speculating that we've gotten smaller as time has gone on?
Yeah.
If you've noticed, the extraterrestrials are generally perceived to be grays, and I've seen them tall, but most of the ones I've seen the videos of, which are probably all Hollywood, but they've always been generally smaller. I wonder if they're not just humans from the future that have been so genetically screwed up by science, and they're coming back and they're like, these little tiny guys.
Yeah. Well, it almost reminds you, I'm not sure when they changed over to being gray, or if they've always been gray, but I think a Stargate, they had the grays as the Asgardians.
Really? I actually did not know that, because I haven't watched a lot of Stargate.
Yeah, Stargate SG-1, the Norse gods known as Asgardians, they were gray aliens.
Gray aliens.
Yeah, small gray aliens,
I like that. I do actually like that kind of stuff when...
And they project like a hologram over them, when they're interacting with humans.
The
past, being Thor and all that, Odin and all that.
That's what I would do if I had that technology, especially if I had to go interact with a species that I don't look anything like. If you could project a hologram, you just project yourself as the finest one of that race, and here we go, baby. I'm a god. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not really, Lord. Forgive me. That's not what I meant.
Yeah, small g god.
Yes.
But if you've never watched Stargate, I would suggest it. I think you would like it.
Yeah, I never have seen it.
Did you watch?
I think I would like it too. I haven't seen any of them, to be honest. I've seen clips.
Okay, well, I would suggest by watching the Russell Crowe. I think it's Russell Crowe. There was a movie that was in theaters called Stargate, and then they did the series based off of that.
And the series had MacGyver, right?
Yeah, the actor of MacGyver, Richard Dean Anderson.
Sorry, I don't mean to sound so dismissive of the guy. Yeah, he had the MacGyver.
Yeah.
So did you see my graphic I'm trying to push around for a little bit of cyclopean publicity?
Yeah.
He had to go to a skiff to testify. You know what a skiff is, right?
Not exactly, no.
See, all right. So see the guy in the middle. He had to say a lot of the stuff he had to say in a skiff, which is for the congressional committee only. So like it's like a sealed room. It's lead, no electronic devices inside, and if you sneak one in, they will detect it and remove it. And
Yeah,
you can
no
go in and talk.
reporters and all
Yep.
that stuff.
But it's a completely sealed environment which they can go and talk secrets in. So there you see Cyclopean. Yep, he's being sent to the skiff.
Diana says, actually, I've always been under the impression that we were getting bigger because if you look back historically, especially in the year 1200, the average height of a man was 5'5". But was that, not to say it's not true, but was that just the size of a certain sect of people, you know?
Like the white man versus the black man versus the Asians.
Or something else, because
Regional.
how many people were measuring their height and keeping record of it back then?
And were they all the same size inches? Ooh, how standardized was the measuring unit? That's what I always like to know.
Well, there is something too. We know the standard, and there's the standard, I think, inch and the imperial inch, and there is a slight difference.
Yeah, and slight differences make huge differences as they add up. It's like when you shoot a missile, you can be off a half inch, 6 feet from your gun, but a mile from there, it's going to be a lot further off.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to dismiss what she said, but we know Scripture says there was giants in the land back then. Now, what that means exactly?
I would like to know what city the giants were from.
Yeah. Well, if everybody was giant back then, there was giants in the land compared to the people that were writing it or whatever, and they were small then.
But see, I only know of giants from New York and from San Francisco. So neither of those cities were around back then. So I need to know where these giants came out of. Get it? It's a sports joke, Rick. It's a sports joke.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
Oh, Diana's saying something? I shared
the latest one. English man, according to website. I was looking at also when I viewed an older buildings and such always seem shorter.
That's an interesting thought too.
Yeah. Yes, that is true, but race began to shrink for some reason, and now we're growing again.
Well, they're probably trying to make us too big to fit in their ships at this point.
It's hard to know exactly what, but
No, I'm serious. Now that we figured out how to drive, they're like, "Oh crap, we can't let them fit in our ships." So if they're 3 feet tall and we average 6 feet tall, we won't fit in their ships.
And that I was just watching a video on some tall people, like the ones that have been recorded in recent history within the last, we'll say 100 to 200 years. Hey, Jeff, how are you? And a lot of these, some of these people were reaching 8-10 feet tall, between 8 and 10 feet tall, or between 7 and 10 feet tall. Well, no, 9 feet, sorry. Not usually above 9 feet. And that was because if one of the glands isn't, there's a gland, a pituitary gland or something like that. I forget what it said. It will leak the growth hormone. And these people just kept growing. A lot of times their body would not support
the growth hormone.
Yeah, because some of them, a lot of them need it, or a fair amount needed braces and all that.
Well, look at Andre the Giant. He died like what in his mid-50s because of his giganticism.
Actually, no, he was in the list actually too, and it said why he died. I don't think it was because of his gigantism.
I don't know. I
If
think it was, or it might have been a combination because he did
Yeah.
abuse the hell out of himself over the years.
yeah,
Uh,
the but like I said, I forget exactly what, but if pre-flood, and there's something too to take into consideration. The atmosphere, from what I've heard from listening to people, was most likely different pre-flood. So it
oh, I'm
might have
sure
been
it
able
was.
to.
Yeah.
It was a lot more oxygen rich and all that. It might have been able to support a bunch people being tall, and maybe due to the flood, you know, and everything coming off of it. So the I would say the genetics are there for tall people, obviously, and there's stuff in our system to allow us to grow to unusual heights, what we would consider unusual heights nowadays, anyways. Um,
But
so
would we like
yeah,
we have the NBA, which is full of 7-footers, but I guess that's still a little shorter than what you're talking.
yeah, that's probably minimum 3 feet shorter, or 2 to 3 feet shorter.
Right. And those people are considered tall in our
Yeah, and I
current
think most of
environment.
them aren't even 7 foot. I think most of them are over 6 foot or over 6'6". Anyways,
Yeah, well, that's true. But most of your centers are 7 to 7'3". Although that has been a trend changing a bit in the NBA. They tend to, or they're not afraid to use like 6'10" at center anymore, where that used to be forbidden. You had to go with the bigger guy. But it's a common thing. Like 7-foot centers are usually the ones you
yeah,
want. Like the Boston Celtics just
yeah,
went way out of their way to get a 7'1" guy because like they consider that to be a golden prize, even though the guy's not a great player. It's like, well, he's
yeah,
big.
yeah, yeah. He's big. He can almost, just put his hand up and dunk it.
And while that may be true, the problem is when they get faced with a guy who's 6'11", who's got the ambition and the talent, it can really backfire. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, that big
Well,
guy can do it, but this littler guy who's got more gumption is going to take it right out of his hands.
possibly. And the other thing that I would think might support the claim that I'm talking about, again from scripture, is of course, I don't know how big the Israelites were at this time, but we do know that when they went to spy out the land at first, there they were giant people. It says, like we're like grasshoppers to them. So those people had to be pretty tall, and it had to be more than just, one or two, like Goliath, you know, that you would
Right.
see, a couple hundred years later, or if you more, maybe more than a couple hundred. So, and we know the food was really big there too, because, they grabbed a cluster of grapes, and it took what, 2 men to carry it. How much does it take for you to carry a cluster of grapes?
Well, it depends which store, but yeah, not 2 men.
Yeah, yeah, you can carry a cluster of grapes in one hand
It
without even.
depends. I might need 2 hands. It might be a big cluster. And what country? Because I bet you that matters too. I bet you in third world nations, they're much bigger. By the time we get them, they
Well,
break them all down, and
well, we have grapes and all that in here, so
yeah,
we don't break them down that much. But a cluster is usually that, well, at least what I consider a cluster is that, you break off one thing, and there's your what, 20 or 30 on one thing, grapes on one thing. For, this cluster to need 2 people to carry it, these things had to be the size of baseballs.
So can you guys see the video I'm sharing right now?
Well, the balloon.
That's not a
Yeah.
balloon. That's not a balloon.
Or whatever
So
it is.
Stupendous, Marshall Moran, if you know who I'm talking about. He's been
so.
sharing a heck of a lot of great videos. Now, granted, we know they can't all be authentic, but some of these are trippy. And this is something that at least looks like something that was described in congressional testimony. In
Yeah.
theory, if that's what they say it was, that's like a football field long. And it's just
Well,
flying around, and it can go up to Mach 2.
okay, well, the speed I'm not going to doubt too much. Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's the size of a football field. Yes, I get we're a fair
No,
amount
I'm going
away
off of
from it.
what their testimony is. It might not be that big, but if it's
Yeah,
what they were testifying to, yeah, that's huge, man.
yeah.
If
Well,
that's what it is.
yeah.
I mean,
It's
granted, that
obvious
could be
like
fake.
that thing there. It's got a fair size to it, but I don't think it'd be like 2 football fields long.
It could be, but it was only said to be one. But yeah,
Or one. It does to me. It doesn't even really look to be one, but
well, that's what are you using for scale?
Or an airplane.
Where'd you see the airplane of that one?
Well, not in that one, but I've seen been on the
Well,
ground.
by scale, technically, you have to have it in the same you have to have it in the
Yeah,
same frame. Yeah.
yeah, I get that, but and I'll admit I could be off. I could be off my rocker or whatever you want to say, But I know about. I look at planes up in the sky, right? And them flying, and usually about how big a plane is, right?
All right, hang on. I'm gonna play you another one. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but you can't see it without there's no other.
Yeah, well,
You know what I mean?
you without anything around, you have to have something to scale. Just like anybody, how would they define the scale of that to anything without
Well, the
nothing else?
estimates of it being a football field are because they've seen it like on the ground, supposedly.
Yeah.
So this one here, as you can see, is 1994, and let's see it's kind of loud. Let me see if I can. But watch this stuff in a second. This gets crazy quick.
Yeah.
And it's VHS camera, I believe. It's definitely like primitive tape. So it makes the idea of CG a little bit harder to believe. Plus, it looks all compressed. But in a second here, he's going to pan to the left, and it gets really freaky then. And then there's a cut, which really bothers me. But hey, it's probably fake, but I still like looking at it. And yeah, we're talking about aliens tonight. So, okay,
Yeah,
here we
I got
go.
off of that for a bit.
It's all right because we were still kind of on it. Okay, so here's the sun, right? Or at least that's what I think it is. But see those things in there? They kind of look like helicopters out of a movie coming up. But then they cut away, and wait till you see what comes up next. Because this gets really freaky. What the heck is that? Like, that is weird.
Yeah.
What the heck is that?
You guys,
Even if
always
it's
do
fake,
that.
it's weird.
It'd help if they could stay a little bit more still.
Yeah, see, when he comes back out, I know exactly what happened, though. He probably zoomed in, especially with a digital zoom. And if you're not on a tripod, it senses every little shake of your hand. But that is flipping freaky.
Yeah. I would almost think, and they could have existed for the military back then. I'd almost think drones, like that we fly around nowadays just to record stuff.
That's true. That is true. There's another one here that I'm dying to show you, which again is totally fake.
Intense Web says AOC was bitching about the UFO hearings. Why?
I do remember her saying something, but I didn't watch the whole thing because I never listened to her. I'm like, oh, it's AOC. All right, look at this one, Rick. It almost looks like an arc up in the sky just flying around.
Yeah, it looks like just a rectangle cube, however you want to say it.
But again, if these are actually the size that was testified, these huge, huge ships, this is amazing. It's like, how are they doing this? Where are the wings? Where are the propulsion? And that's why
Yeah.
I guess it's raised the eyebrows of the senators and the representatives that have seen it. Hang on, Intense is adding to the conversation.
Yeah, he says
The monumental waste that is the USA military complex. Agree with her. Well, you know what? I generally do think
Well-
it's a huge waste because we didn't know about this stuff. Like, if we're messing around with this stuff, suddenly $800 billion starts to make a little bit more sense. If the military is using cutting edge technology of another, species, yeah, I suddenly understand why they're spending that much money, because minds and science are not cheap. You
we
know
have
what I mean?
5 contractors that get half that budget.
Which is scary. I do
Wow.
remember reading that or hearing that, and that is scary. Five contractors, but that means that there's a lot of power consolidated in American corporations, and whether we like it or not, it's the way it is. And we are not in a position where we can just go take the muskets, take the White House, and demand everything the way we want it. We have to work in a system until such time that that system isn't functional, which is not up to us.
Well, it is, but it isn't. But the problem is, everything's not as what's the word? Clear, translucent. Yeah, I think you know what word I'm going for.
Transparent.
Yeah, transparent. With government and where everything goes, especially itemized.
Oh no, they always have their secrets and their little caveats and their, even the stuff we're hearing. Rick, when you're watching the testimony, it's nonstop. I either can't discuss it, I can't disclose it in public. We'll have to do that in private. What we get are the little the
Tidbit.
teasers. Yeah, and that's why my mind has been going so big on the alien thing the last few days, because they're leaving these huge open holes where my brain goes, well, how do I put A to B? Let me create.
Let's see. Tent says, basically, she said this is all made up to show to keep their budget high, which is possible. And they haven't passed an audit in years.
Well, all that
have they even had an audit?
Yes. But let me explain 2 things about that, because I maybe I did see this video because I remember all that. Number one, if they were just doing this to keep their budget high, that would be stupid, because we all know all they have to do is start a war with Ukraine and Russia, and suddenly the budget is explained. And it's not hard to explain being the number 1 superpower on the planet, having to stay up on technology, having to cover the defense of Europe and multiple nations at the same time. Yes, that would all make sense.
Yeah.
So I don't buy that it would be to fake it. And the fact that they haven't passed an audit tells you they're spending it somewhere and not telling you what, which leads us back to the damn aliens. Okay,
well, it's like what's his name said in Independence Day, the father of the one guy. What do you think? They spent $5 billion on a paperclip?
There's something they're doing there.
That's a little messed up. But I don't know how.
Well,
high the budget is.
Trump, right?
Yeah.
Remember President Trump? He started this thing that they all mocked called Space Force. Everybody on the other side, and including a lot of right wingers, went, "Oh, that's crazy. What's he wasting his time on?"
Yeah.
Well, rumor has it now that he got wind of the alien thing, and he was asked by the Alien Federation not to expose it, and so he created Space Force to begin a department to protect us from it. And that indeed implies that there are diplomatic ties between aliens and humans. And that information comes from the former director of space from Israel, which again could all be poo-poo, it could all be fake, but it could all be real too. And when I hear that, I'm like, oh, now a lot more makes sense. Why are they so hateful towards Trump? Whoa, maybe that's why. what if the line that makes you acceptable or unacceptable is how you feel about the aliens being involved, you know? Like,
Intent says BS. Back to basics for U.S. Truth in finances. All or nothing or end of country.
I'm down with that. I'm down
Yeah.
with that. I would love to know where that money, secret money, is really going. I would love to know. And
Yeah.
if it is in an alien power source, as I suspect, if they have mastered these generators that can create the effects that these ships are showing, that have no signs of propulsion, but all this energy and power being able to do it, then we need them to be using that to power our country, our vehicles, and selling that to the other nations so that we can maintain our position in the geographical, alignment of things. Because as a capitalist, that's what we want to do. Right? We want to take, that's what made us great in the first place. We took electricity and started doing things with it,
Yeah.
If they're holding out on an energy source that's cleaner than nuclear, safer than coal and oil, then damn it, they are not doing the right thing. We
Yeah.
can
Well.
use that.
Yeah. Well, in that, of course, there is the fact that a lot of these, the oil and gas company, of course, they want to make their money. But
Well,
I was
that's
gonna
the
say,
scary thing, because you're right. Capitalists would say, well, we still have, 100 years of oil to extract out of the people. But it's such foolishness, because
yeah.
when you have a golden carrot and you want to sit on it, you know what happens? Another golden carrot will grow on your neighbor's lawn, and they're going to jump to it before you do it,
He says this military and budget waste is the main reason we have strong Democratic Party. Both sides are guilty of waste. Yeah. Well, there's the thing too. I don't know about how much it went up or is or whatever. There's the thing. The reason it's probably so high recently is, look what happened in Afghanistan. Look at all the blunders Biden has made to the military in the last 2 years or 3 years.
Yeah, but I realized
How
something
much
hearing
stuff
about that.
you guys have
He
lost.
dropped $85 million worth of equipment in Afghanistan, or $85 billion worth. And that sounds like a whole lot, but these people are trillions of dollars in debt. So to us, we hear 85 billion and, everything we have shrinks into our body and goes, oh, that's what? To them, it's like, yeah, it's an acceptable loss. To them, it wasn't worth it to ship it out of there. It would have cost them more to ship it than it was worth to them. And that's because they're not thinking in realistic numbers anymore. They are all wasteful.
He said, I have 3 combat vet kids and now a combat vet grandkid. I know. Yeah.
Yep.
But, like I said, and to buy that stuff is going to cost, I don't know how long ago it was gotten, but to get all that stuff, it's probably going to cost more than what it would cost to buy it in the first place.
Well, there is something else about that. And it's kind of funny because we've dumped all this equipment on the Ukraine. And I'm beginning to wonder if that isn't how they justify advancing their own equipment. So in other words, let's say you've got 100 tanks that were built 10 years ago, and they're pretty badass compared to all the other tanks in the world. But you're ready to build these new, 2.0 versions of the same tank, and you're putting them into your own army, but you got to do something with these old ones. So you have a conflict somewhere, you dump the hardware over there, and now they're in someone else's hands doing
who knows what
military things.
Yeah. He says, plus son has been DOD for years. I'm not sure what that is. Plus
Department of Defense.
Plus 2 SA kids.
TSA.
Freaking old.
TSA, yeah. Bro, you got like ties all through the government with that stuff. My kid is a teacher.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I may be remembering this a little weird, but I remember he wanted to go into the army, and my father-in-law pulled him aside and had this like private one-on-one with him. And when it was over, my son came out and wanted to be a school teacher. and I never did find out exactly what was said. But whatever it was, it motivated him not to necessarily go to the army. I imagine it was the horrors of war.
Yeah,
You know,
possibly.
but it was strange because he went completely from like wanting to go join ROTC and all that stuff to suddenly nothing, like no military for him. And like I said, I never did find out. And unfortunately, Pa's passed away, so I never will find out unless I ask Jason. I just haven't.
Yeah.
Maybe I hasn't. Maybe
Although
I
you
should.
probably could.
Yeah, I probably should.
Yeah,
I
maybe
will
that
actually.
now that your father-in-law is
Now
dead,
that
you
he's
might.
passed, maybe we can get that declassified.
Intent says son-in-law was captain over 2,000 troops in Ukraine. Bunch of BS. My daughter, his wife went. My daughter.
And yeah, his daughter, my daughter, his wife, meaning his son-in-law's wife, went with him earlier, like 2015 or 16 or so. Both U.S. Army. Yeah. It's funny when I think about it. The only family member I remember in the army in our family went AWOL like in 1989. He joined the army and went AWOL like 2 weeks after training, which doesn't speak well of my family, but it's just a reality.
Well, now I don't know whether this would take up the budget and all that, but we do know they have a lot of probably overpaid generals and a lot of overpaid people in the higher ups ranks, and of course, then they have. I'm not sure how big what is it? 30. How big is the U.S. Army? Well, including all the divisions, Navy, Army, Air
it's hard to
Force.
say. I know they say recruitment's down. But I don't know. Let me Google that. Let's consult the Google professor. U.S. military
Still active duty.
total
Says it
enrollment.
laugh out loud. Yeah, he works for one. Laugh out loud.
So, how many soldiers are in the U.S. military 2023? 1,390,000 active, 1,390,000 active, with another 442,000 in reserve, which gives you what? 1.8 million total.
Yeah, and I don't know how
and
much
the budget,
all those guys are.
Well, the budget's only $816.7 billion, ranked first in the world.
Well, okay. Well, obviously, I don't know how much all those guys are going to. I'd say all those people account probably for that. That's obviously per year. I'd say that probably accounts for at least $1 billion of it.
Hang on, let's check something.
Actually, the regular soldiers, probably with the generals and all that, that probably accounts for $2 billion.
So, starting pay for a general is about $17,600 a month. So that's probably where they start working up or down. I'm sure it doesn't go too much higher, but let's see.
Contractors. Okay, he's saying contractors get half the budget.
Yeah, he's right.
And contractors are people that build bases, or what are the contractors?
No, contractors do a lot of stuff. They build weapons bases, research. Sometimes they're involved in military operations. Like you'll have basically mercenaries doing operations. So yeah, contractors.
So you probably have people like Stark.
Tony?
Yeah, Tony or his dad.
Sure. Well, I'm sure that Lockheed Martin and the companies like that are very much of that ilk in reality,
Or even Norman Osborn,
Yeah. No, and you know what? To AOC's credit, which doesn't really go very far, now that he brought it up and I'm thinking about it, she did mention that the 5 corporate guys were in trench coats. And I kind of giggled when I heard that because I did see that video. Because I'm like, well, what does she expect? You know, like these guys aren't like dressed in yuppie polo shirts with little ties and, you know, hair trimmed to fit the local fashion trend. We have the toughest military in the world. These are not going to be your standard, you know, IT guys with the nice haircut.
No,
So the fact that
they're head of it.
yeah,
You
and
know,
the fact
so-
that she's like surprised that they look like, you know, henchmen in trench coats. I'm like, you're talking about military. You're talking about war. You're talking about warriors.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they're
I
very
guess she's
advanced.
thinking they would. I guess she would think they'd look more business-like. You know, sort of like Trump, if you will.
Yeah, and maybe we do too, but maybe we should not think like that. Maybe they're telling us something. If they give her that vibe, maybe we need to understand that our military is no freaking joke.
Yeah.
Like the stuff we have is far beyond our M16s and our visions of Apache helicopters and you know, our tanks and stuff. What we perceive is not even touching the surface of what we have, I'm sure.
Yeah. Intent says Microsoft, AWS, all kinds of military tech under the big 5 contractors. All of them get billions. And your wife says
Absolutely.
that's crazy. And she said what about the top 5 contractors getting billions? So yeah, I'm not sure how much I agree or disagree with that. You know, like you said, it's over 800 billion, so that's over 400 billion that these 5 companies are getting for
add that up, though.
we'll say research and development.
Yeah, but no, just go look at how much they charge for a jet fighter. I can't quote the number off the top of my head, but it would not surprise me in the least bit if one of those costs somewhere near $1 billion. The missiles alone cost up to like $8 million each. Can you imagine shooting something at somebody with the intent to kill them that costs $8 million? But it's a smart missile and it can evade all the, you know, all the security and all the defensive measures to get into the ship that they're shooting at to blow it up. It's like, wow, $8 million. If I had one of those missiles to sell, I could retire for life. And they're shooting it off like it was a BB gun.
Yeah, well, is it 8 million? I'm thinking the jet fighters.
Not all of them. Not all of them. I'm talking about certain missiles that they were using, and I only know about this because I watched a documentary. But they have a certain missile that it works in a certain kind of gun in a ship that was built in the 90s.
Yeah.
And they can't retrofit it with anything else. And the only thing they can do is send it into dock and completely rearm it, which is going to cost them a fortune, or stock these like $8 million missiles and they can't shoot anything but. And it's like, wow. But
well,
yeah,
I think it's time to retire that gun or that.
Well, and that's the
whatever.
thing. Is, like he's talking about half of the budget going to that. There have been ships that have cost like billions to build that they've decided after they built it that it wasn't such a good idea after all. So it gets abandoned and it sits in a, you know, like a graveyard on the coast of America somewhere. And I've watched a lot of documentaries. I just don't have a lot of use for that information until tonight.
Yeah. Your wife says, I thought we were discussing aliens. Laugh out loud. They got sidetracked again.
No, actually, this is all tied to aliens because we have to discuss the budget. Like AOC was discussing what like a black hole the military has been for money and how it doesn't pass audits. Well, why?
I don't think she said about the audits. I wouldn't trust her if she said
no,
that.
she did. She did say something about it's never passed an audit. And the thing is,
well, I remember Intent saying that. Intent said that earlier.
Yeah, he said it too, but it was in her video. That's where he got it from. He was quoting her, and she's not wrong about it not passing an audit. But the reason is they're hiding stuff from us. They can't tell us. You know, if they went and spent $100 billion trying to reverse engineer a vehicle that crashed last week, they can't tell us where their $100 million is going if they're keeping the vehicle a secret. Do you see what I'm saying? So all that money gets
yeah.
kind of hidden.
Yeah, well, it's all that research and development. Intent says I sidetracked on AOC complaining about the UFO hearing being about money,
Military
and
budget, yeah.
yeah, and then he said she did say that. Okay, my bad.
It
Do you
is
have
it
any
is
more?
alien videos. I can find some, honey. They're all over the internet.
Oh yeah.
Would you like to see an alien video?
YouTube is full of them.
Yeah, but there was one today. If I can locate it, which means I'm going back to Stu's channel. If you guys don't know, that's Maureen Marshall. He reports for Critical Blast, but he also shares some of the coolest UFO stuff that I've seen ever. Like, he just finds the craziest videos. Most of them are probably fake, to be honest with you, but it doesn't matter. I enjoy watching them. I'm sure some of them are real. So I do that. I'm flicking while I talk, so if I'm missing anything, you guys have to tell me.
Intent says this is why I wear chastity, because of the aliens. I've heard things. And then your wife says, "Oh, Intent, you make me laugh." But
okay, so let's look at this one. This one was from 1997 and Mexico, I believe, is where it came from. Is this the one, or is it this one, or is it this one?
Yeah. And then, of course, I think with aliens, the one thing we haven't leaned on yet talking about is the Men in Black.
Oh, well, yeah. There's a version of them somewhere, isn't there?
But we'll get to them, I guess, after this video that you're going to show.
Well, no, keep talking, because I got to find the right link.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the Men in Black, Diana and I were actually discussing that because there was a multi-lettered alphabet corporation called ARAD, or organization, that I guess is supposed to talk about, and he did. He being Gross.
Yeah. But that's the one thing that gets me with that first video you shared or played a couple times. Yeah, I can't really speak about this in public. Then why the hell are we here?
Yeah. All he could do is say we would talk about it in private, but that was kind of interesting to me. I was like, what? He's what?
Yeah,
like,
but
it leaves speculation. And the reason he can't say it.
Isn't he one of the whistleblowers, the ones coming public about this? And yet
he
you don't
is,
want to
but
talk
the
about
thing about it is some of the stuff he's not revealing because, in theory, he understands the significance of it, and he can't release it because to him that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, but I understand why he's doing it. I don't like it.
And yes, Diana, it is a movie, but based on the fact that these people that were dressed in black going around, you're supposed to have been going around when things.
So as you can see, this aircraft looks to be wobbly, and I never understood that. But there was a video by Bob Lazar, that was his name, discussing how these things generate lift, and supposedly they're riding a magnetic wave, I believe he said, and the magnetic wave is fluctuates in the atmosphere, so that would create this wobbly effect that these ships have. I don't know how true that is, and of course, could all be fake, but since we're talking about it. So I guess this is an eyewitness. I can't really hear her. I have the volume down, but I think she's speaking Spanish anyways.
Yeah. Diana says, "Oh, I did not know that." Laugh out loud. No problem.
So I guess that's a video enhancement of some sort to show the path of the ship. Let's see. That's an overlay. People talking, people pointing. I'm kind of flicking through because see how long it is? Those are all eyewitness accounts.
Yeah.
There is some English.
With the wobbly, it makes it look almost fake.
Well, yeah, to me that would make no sense. But when you hear like the possible way of it being manipulated in the atmosphere, it could make sense. If that makes sense. All right, where are we?
Oh, I sent a message to Diana a couple days ago. She got back to me today. You guys are going to be launched by the 23rd of August for Cyclopean, right?
Yeah, it all depends on the approval process, but yeah, we should be. Why?
Well, I was saying about you guys coming on my show to
Yes, yes.
promote Cyclopean. Now, obviously, I'd probably have to make it a little later in the evening. Oh, crap. But I can't. Or did I make
What'd
it
you
the
do?
day and night? Well, it's the 23rd. I do that thing on Wednesday. And if I make it too later, that's going to interfere with your show on
We'll figure it
Wednesday night.
out. All right, this next thing I'm going to share actually comes from TMZ, which is a talk show in America.
Yeah,
But they
I know.
brought
I've heard
this
of it.
guy on.
We have to go to the skiff.
He's he's one of the guys on the committee that
So I have
runs this.
two questions. One, do you have that evidence regarding murders? And two, is Congress following up to investigate that very
Right.
thing that the intelligence officer said?
Those two things are tied together. If you noticed, he said in some of his answers, I cannot tell you in this setting. So what he's saying is we have to go to the skiff, which is basically a lead-lined room. You can't take a cell phone in. You can't take a Fitbit. I don't have a Fitbit, but anything electronic. It's kind of James Bond stuff, and you put it in a locker outside. And I've been in one, and
the
they
code
get
of
briefed
silence.
on top secret stuff. And then they literally will come in and say, hey, we're picking up a cell phone in here. Somebody's got a cell phone, and then somebody will check their pockets and, oh yeah, crap, I got a cell phone on me. So it's that kind of thing. And so we have to get him in the skiff so he can tell us that stuff. He is a very much by the rules guy, and I don't want to I don't want to get him in trouble or me in trouble. Now, here's the rub. We tried to get in a skiff with David Grush, and we were told no, because he does not have security clearance, which is bogus. He knows literally where the bodies are, but he also knows where the craft are. So honestly, if you got a craft from outer space and it crashes here, something had to be driving it, or steering it or what have you. So I think it's a multifaceted answer.
Besides the people who we saw testify yesterday, have
Could
you
be
been in
remote
contact with
control.
other people within the government who have shared information about this issue?
100%. And most of them are out of the government now. So,
Okay.
And I've actually had congressmen tell me that they've had sightings before. They were afraid of, some of them are very, they're very respected, high-ranking members of Congress have told me, and they wanted to remain anonymous, and I can respect that. I've never seen anything. I've never seen anything that I couldn't describe or, that would be unidentifiable. But yeah, and we're getting close to the target, because that's why they're firing at us, brother. They put up every obstacle you can imagine.
They put up every obstacle you can imagine. Why are they doing that?
Who knows?
There's got to be there has to be a reason.
Yeah, there has to be a reason, but of course we can only speculate, and we've done that definitely tonight so far.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad that Intense is here because he has helped us look at some other things as well. But you can see public participation, as big as this is, I think people are afraid of it. I really do.
Well, I think to me, it sometimes seems they're more afraid of the repercussions. Now, the question is, repercussions how? Of course, at one point, if you said stuff like this, you could get, say an Air Force person or pilot said, yeah, I saw this flying saucer. If they said stuff like that, they could possibly get grounded and not be able to fly.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's something they've been facing too.
Yeah.
All right, so here's one that came from just the other night, and it could be nothing.
Did you see that
But I'll
shit?
bring it
It
in.
lit the whole goddamn sky.
All right, I'll rewind it.
What is
is that?
There it is.
Bounced to the space.
What the
What?
fuck is that?
What the fuck is that? That was a UFO.
And that was a fucking UFO, man.
For real.
And it just went up into the clouds, baby. Did you?
I don't know if that was a UFO. That kind of looked like it could be a rocket, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. We're launching satellites and all that all the time. Or not literally all the time, obviously, but a lot. That could have easily been a rocket going up to put a satellite in orbit,
Right.
or it could have been something else too.
It could have been. It could have been. Aliens are
Unfortunately,
everywhere,
some of
man.
these are so, isn't it?
Isn't it what?
Is it a UFO or isn't it a UFO? Sometimes
Well,
you can't
for
be
one
too
thing,
sure.
UFO just means unidentified flying object. So
Yeah,
I definitely know there are a ton of those. The question is, are any of these extraterrestrial or are they all fakes? And I would say some of them have to be real, particularly the ones that we've seen from the military.
yeah.
The leaked
And
footage from the military, I believe wholeheartedly because
and
I'm putting faith in it.
yeah. Well, the other thing too is, although it's unidentified and there are some that are real. In other words, of course, there are some of these videos that are most likely fake. But could some of them just be military testing a vehicle that they don't want to tell us about?
It could be, but
It may
they're
not
also
be alien or in origin. It just might be.
well. No, the question would be, where would they get the technology to do these things? And
Yeah,
that's where it suddenly becomes quite possible that could be alien technology that they're testing, something that they've rewound, that they've what do they call that, reverse engineered.
Yeah. Well, I know this isn't quite the same thing, but we have to remember, where did the internet started? It started by the military developing it for their use behind the scenes so they could communicate with each other without having to use the phone and stuff over long distances. Like the internet was developed in a sense, 50 years before the first normal person ever had it or even heard of it.
Yeah, probably.
You know?
At least in some form,
Yeah. So are these just stuff that we don't know about yet? That they're testing or whatever.
Some of it could be, but the question is, where did they get this knowledge? Like this technological knowledge to do that.
Maybe just, and like I said, I believe in life on other planets. I'm not sure whether they visited Earth, but we could have easily created it ourselves. We have scientists. We developed the nuclear. We developed
I don't
the
buy
atom
it.
bomb.
No, I don't buy it, man. No way. Okay, so what we're looking at here is supposedly someone was taking video, and this thing was so fast that they found it on one frame in the video. In other words, it was moving so quickly that it was there and gone in one frame. And they zoom up to it a little bit, and you can see to me, it looks like a Lost in Space ship. So I'm starting to wonder if Lost in Space isn't being filmed again. However, Diana asked me if there were any more alien UFO videos, so I'm showing some of them now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just having this conversation tonight. Anybody out there who's watching, you're more than welcome to jump in or chat in the stream.
Well, we're live anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I'm down with talking about this stuff. All right, what is this? Because while I'm talking and buying time, I'm looking through videos to see if there's something else I want to show you guys. Specifically, Diana, because she doesn't often let me just play her UFO videos. Okay, that one's lame. Some of them I find to be very lame. Like I just look at them, I'm like, yeah, that looks like CG or, ooh.
Yeah, you know what? You could do this too for other different things. I know it's not quite the same because you had thing. what was it, my show or Dillard? I think it was on my show, and Dillard came on. Apparently, there was a recent. I think it was supposed to be a very recent sighting of Bigfoot,
Oh yeah, I didn't hear about that.
and it was a pretty
bigger
good
than
video.
you had ever imagined.
Okay, so Diana, if you're still there, this is a quick little video, basically about the big white wall, which is only important in the conversation's sake is if it's non-human and something beyond our understanding, and it's highly unlikely. But check this out: people have
Yeah,
actually
based on flat Earth.
right, well, or bigger Earth. There's that theory too. But hang on, watch this.
What if I told you that the world we live in is much bigger than you had ever imagined? And what if I told you we were lied to? Of the maps, the globe, everything. What if I told you it was all lies? And that in
What if I
Antarctica,
told you we could get in a plane and find out?
there's a wall. It's an ice wall. And it's said to be 150 to 200 feet high. It goes for miles and miles and miles and miles. All the way around, blocking off anyone from entering the South Pole. And what if I told you that many expeditions went and attacked this wall, and they tried to destroy it? And what if I told you a few of the expeditions, the explorers climbed the wall, and they described what they found? They found a pyramid of snow, which was referred to as terror. They found a volcano spewing magma, and they called it Mount Erebus. And he said there was many lands beyond the pole. And this ice barrier completely blocked the way. If you look on the old maps, we can see many more continents and countries that are supposedly past this wall. And why was it hidden? Why is our actual world hidden from us? And people can claim that this is a myth, but why did they make the Antarctic Treaty? Why are we blocked from seeing our true world?
Okay, so let me explain at least the logic behind that, because I see the points being made. So the logic behind this would be the South Pole actually isn't down south. It's all around the world as we know it, and this ice wall. And while you've gone around the world twice, it's an illusion. So in other words, like the fact that you've been around the world really just means you've been around the territory they've allowed us to go around. Now, in the defense of logic, I don't buy this story, but it's an interesting one nonetheless. And it really does tickle my fancy to imagine that, because if that is the case, if that is the truth, if this huge ice wall protected by a multinational Antarctic treaty that we're not allowed to go there, if it all exists the way that the conspiracy theorists say, yes, I can understand why that would blow everybody's minds. That would be a total mind melt. If the reality of this planet is that we're just a small part of a much bigger planet and they've kept it hidden somehow.
But the question
yes.
becomes why.
Well, until even if I understand why, just the fact that they could pull that off would blow my mind. If they, if tomorrow morning, God forbid, we wake up and Fox and CNN and CBS and NBC are all, today in the news, it's been revealed that we are part of a much larger planet about the size of Jupiter. And we didn't know this, but there are multiple continents in this planet that are far more advanced than we are, non-human. Like what if we are, how like in the human world we know, there are tribes in South America or wherever, in Africa, where we haven't touched them with civilization, so they live as savages. They're still like eating fruit from the trees and killing local animals for their meat, and They know nothing of our society. What if our world is like an untouched, like they're like, oh, look at the cute humans and how they kind of form little cities. And oh, they made a car. Isn't that cute? It runs on fossil fuel. Like what if it's crazy, but what if we're just part of a little untouchable group of, conservative land on somebody's bigger planet?
Yeah.
To
Well,
answer wait a minute, to answer intense, I don't believe they are. 1 and 3 are definitely supposed to be different books. I'm a little out of sync with the cluster fudge thing. I have to go look it up and look at it because I'm in alien mode.
It's the same. It's not the same book, but it is the same title, and it's part of a continuing.
It's a related story. Yes. In fact, I have to do 4 eventually, but currently so if we're gonna go comics real quick, I'll do this because Cyclopean is supposedly an alien. Issue 5 is completely done. It goes into final read through tomorrow. I've gone through and redrawn like 4 of the panels that I felt should have been, could have been, and would have been better. So even that's been done. We'll be getting our first press proofs here probably in a week. And by then, sometime in that next week, we will definitely be launched. We sat down and figured out our tiers today and our add-ons. And I believe the only thing left to figure out was shipping. Diana was working on that.
The thing is with Fund My Comics, there's not really any add-ons. They just have a cart system. So anything anybody wants, they can put it in a cart.
So what does that mean? Like everything is just an item?
Yeah. Like on Indiegogo, where you would put the item and then there'd be the quote unquote add-on item, which you'd get to after you checked out of your main item.
Right.
Before you checked out, This, it doesn't even have that. You can just go through and say, okay, I want this one, this one, this one.
So let me ask you, even though we're supposed to be talking about aliens, does it behoove you to set up a package like the all-in-one package where they get the book, the t-shirt, the cards, or do you just put the book, the t-shirt, and cards as separate items that they can just tag together?
You could. The only reason I'd say it would behoove you to do it all together is they could save on shipping that way, because each item is going to have its individual shipping, right?
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, I think Diana's still listening, so that's an interesting note to keep. Then again, ladies and gentlemen, we have to be honest. I cannot verify that Rick is not extraterrestrial. So we may have an alien in our midst. I know.
Yes. Live long and prosper.
Technically, aliens, aren't we? Because I am not from Canada and you are not from America. So to each other, we're both alien life forms.
Yeah. Let's see. Diana says, no, they're not the same book, but it's a continuing story. I figured it out, and yes, I know that, Rick. Thanks. Okay. I was just more telling Chris. I didn't know whether you knew or not. And he says, yep. She said, yep, exactly. Planning to discuss all this tomorrow. Laugh out loud.
So, you know how Andrew Tate has a, $97 comic book?
Yeah.
He just announced it. So I'm trying to find, and I think I've found, and I won't announce it till we launch, a very special way to make a limited number of books very expensive. And I will offer them in this tier. I think it might be as much as $300 for one of these books. Very limited edition.
He is a spaz. Laugh out loud. And something that she said earlier, I'd say you'd have to have some good hallucinogenic drugs.
Well, to believe that story, yeah, I don't know if it would be true or not. I tend to doubt it, but it's very interesting. And if it is true, it totally explains why. Like, so there's a story that President Carter pushed to find out more about UFOs. And he got some information from, people in the know, and he literally broke down and cried. And supposedly it was because he found out the truth about the alien contacts, and he never did release the information. So it's very interesting. Like, is there something so horrifying, that like they are afraid to tell us?
Or they think, and then tend to put the smiley face. It's, I don't know. I don't think it'd be that horrible as much as they think it would.
Well, it really does depend on what it is. Like if they're coming here visiting and we're like on display like a zoo, that's not the worst thing. Like, okay, whatever. But if they're coming here eating our children, like if that's where human trafficking is really going right now, which is a horrible thing to think about. But let's face it, we don't really understand the true volume of human trafficking as shown through the very, very basic movie Sound of Freedom. As much as that movie has stirred people, it is a very vanilla look at a very serious problem. And I think it's good that they did it that way because people need time to even grasp it. It's so mind-numbing, but it's much worse than that movie showed it. That movie was very kind to us in a sense that it did not show us the true horrors,
Yeah, it wasn't much worse than an episode of Law and Order SVU, which has dealt with that topic before, and several other programs have too as well. But I guess on with the aliens.
So yeah, well, I'm just going to show it while we talk. This here is another video that I can't verify. I kind of doubt it, but look at this ship. It's about to come into screen. It almost looks like an airplane taking off because it's going like from left to right, which would mean a runway. But it does start doing some weird stuff, like that little weird turn there, and see how it's spinning.
Yeah, well, you know what it looks like, but it's all way too fast. Is one of the airships from like from during the Second World War.
You mean like a blimp?
blimp.
It's the thing about it is, okay, so like you mentioned, it's moving way too fast, but that could be a trick just by speeding up the video, and like if you notice, the camera is doing a lot of shake and stuff.
Yeah,
but on the other hand, this could be done through CGI and just compression later to make it look like bad video.
Your wife says it looks like a Starlink.
Yeah, no, you think so? A Starlink actually is far thinner, I think. I don't think a Starlink would.
I would think there would be ways to tell whether this was sped up. And
I'm sure there are, but I don't have that way. I don't have that method right now.
Well, yeah, I know, but like if you hit the fast forward button on your whatever you're watching, right, you can usually tell that you're fast forwarding.
Well, yeah, that's on a VHS.
No, well, even like a DVD or digital.
Let's see. All right, so Miss Diana, this is what a Starlink satellite looks like from Earth. That would be kind of freaky if you didn't know what it was, though. Like Miss Diana, who had one fly over her head one evening.
Yeah, I just look laugh out loud.
So Diana, are you looking at the screen?
Yeah, I was out by the fire and freaked out.
Yeah, because I remember she was like yelling at me that she didn't have her phone and I missed it. It was so incredible. And then somebody mentioned it to us, and I think she looked it up online, and it was confirmed that Starlink had just gone over our area. But yeah, that does kind of look like a line of UFOs just flying right overhead.
Well, even if it's not UFOs, it looks, like alien stuff. It would be really whack to suddenly see all these lights just going by in order like that. I can see that easily being freaky to
Okay, so
somebody.
the next video I have to share is truly probably full of fake, but Diana wanted to see alien videos,
Yeah.
so we are going to see this.
Yeah, and Diana said, I told my friend, and she told me that it was creepy. Oh, Lordy, it was so creepy.
All right, are you ready? If you're all right, I didn't hear her, but I assume she's ready. Remember, I believe these are fake. At least some of it.
Yeah, in the early thousands or in the 90s, they did some documentaries about this sort of stuff.
Now, this part does blow my
Alien
mind.
autopsy.
You see how they're pulling that off the eye?
Yeah.
It never occurred to me, but they might be wearing contact lenses.
Yeah, of sorts. Dennis, yep. Ew, that was just wrong. Ick.
But it's quite possible that could be a contact lens. Like if they're really sensitive to beams of light in our spectrum. This is creepy because they're way small there.
God damn. Yeah, just look at all that. Look at this. Jeez, I'm going to have some fun now.
That dialogue aggravates me, especially when they make it look.
Just give me one right now.
If this is real, I got mad.
Hey, be easy pouring that stuff in there. Okay.
Yeah, it really looks like E.T. there, though.
We brought the TV news in this.
Watch this, though.
Oh, I heard you.
Oh, that's made to look like a horror movie.
Now, this looks fake, but it's creepy. That looks fake, but still creepy. And honestly, though, would anybody put any of this past our government if it was real? Like, I could see them seriously doing autopsies on dead aliens.
Okay, what did I say? Diana, for you to say exactly, Rick? I forget.
Now, I'm not a real coroner, so I don't know anything. I would wonder how realistic that really is.
Yeah.
A coroner would be
But
able
like
to give
I
you a
said,
better
in the
estimate.
night, I'm not sure if you'd be able to find it, but I think there was like I said, there was a made-for-TV thing in the 90s or early 2000s called Alien Autopsy. I think that's what it was called.
Now, this ship on the screen right now would be similar to what Bob Lazar was claiming to be working on, I'm sure.
Oh, probably the horror movie thing. She said exactly.
I have no idea what these images were from, but they were, I guess, aliens.
Or something night supernatural or whatever.
It's kind of weird they show them shaking world leaders' hands and then they're out in the woods.
Oh, and the one looking like E.T. too, with the long neck. E.T. phone home. I have a sneaky suspicion that E.T., whatever his real name was supposed to be, was a Jedi in training.
He may have been.
Because we know that species was in the whatchamacallit universe.
Now that one, that looks like it's from a movie there.
Yeah.
Or a video game.
But why do they all look the same? Well, they look slightly different.
I'm sure they say the same about us, Diana. Why do all those humans look the same? Like, what the heck is that? That's got to be from a fictional movie. So there was another one for you, babe.
So it's like 10 after 11. I can go longer, but I'm just wondering how long you want to go for.
No, I'm probably gonna kill it. It's getting late, and we did get to talk quite a bit.
Yeah.
If you guys are out there and you enjoyed Tism Skism for the evening, let us know. I'll come back every week at least and do it on this channel. This is not the Hero Shack channel, so I haven't mentioned the comics too much. This is just where I'm going to go on Friday or Saturday night to blow off some mental energy on the local or the latest news, you know. We could have gone off about Biden. We could have gone off about the DOJ. We could have gone off about anything, but I really want to talk about the aliens. They were really blowing my mind. And I want to thank you, Rick, for coming. I know you got Melvin 3 and Melvin 0 you're working on, aren't you?
Well, I'm not working on Melvin 0. I'm not on that project, but of course, Melvin 3 is all done except for the lettering, I think. And it launched officially today. Last time I knew it was at $150.
Nice.
Here, let me refresh. Come on.
Is he doing a flex or an all or nothing? How does that work?
He's doing an all or nothing, and it's now at 8 backers, 39%. So, you know, you can get the digital for like $5, or there's, you know, I think $10.
Hey, good night, Intense.
There's $10 for the book 3, for Melvin 1 and 2. There, I think it is $25 plus shipping. $30 for some merch, and then $35 for all 3 books, 1, 2, and 3.
There he goes. He's got it going on. What about your projects? When's your Canadian Shield coming?
My remastered. Right now, technically, I'm waiting on 2 things. Although I can launch it probably anytime without them. One is an ad for the back, because oh no, am I waiting for the remastered? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I think I'm waiting for an ad for the inside back cover, and I'm waiting for the cover.
Interesting.
Because my friend, my sketchbook 360 is doing the cover. But probably tomorrow I'm gonna try and, after I do church, and I'm on Rex's channel for watching The Chosen season 2, episode 6. I'm gonna hopefully be getting all that together on Kickstarter, so I can launch it within the maybe next Saturday. I don't know.
Very cool.
Because if I don't have
you don't have what?
If I don't have the cover, that's not too bad, but I would like the cover before then.
Yeah, that's the one thing. I have a cover right now for Cyclopean 5. But you know how covers can be. Sometimes you draw something and it kind of forms and you're like, hey, I think I want to go with this. So I'm still playing around, and until we actually launch, I do have flexibility, but you know.
Yeah. And
kind of waiting on Diana to come up with the final edit, which is tomorrow morning, so that won't be bad.
And of course, I did the inks on Melvin 3, or at least for the main story. So
you are on Melvin 3.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not on Melvin Zero.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I did the inks and the colors for the cover for Melvin 3.
There you go. Badass. Cover 3. All right, man. Listen, I'm going to cut this stream. Thank everybody once again. If you're watching this in replay, yeah, welcome to Tism Skism. We should be back next week. Although I have done this before and not really maintained my commitment, hopefully this will not be a problem. Check us out on Wednesday nights on the Hero Shack channel. Like and subscribe if you please, because that channel's only got like 3 subscriptions or something, but we're going to build
It's
it
got
up.
14. But
I
go
don't know
over
what it has. Yeah. I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever. But the hope is that the Christians that used to watch this channel will come back and we can have some good conversations. And on the Hero Shack channel, we can have the comic book ones, but I don't mind cross promoting. I just know that, different audiences
respond to different things.
Yeah. All right. So good night, everybody. God bless you. If you run into aliens, just ask to see a green card. That's probably all you can do, and if they fly away, that's good. That means they weren't interested in you.
Just remember the handshake. It's
Nanu,
like
nanu.
pork. Nanu, nanu.
Yeah, that's
Or
right,
the
man.
greeting. Live long
Practice
and
that.
prosper.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, practice it. Just work it out, get with your friends and
Well,
you can mix it up like that, and that's the key right there. Yeah.
live long and prosper is with the thumb out and the hand up.
See, you're so formal.
Like
You're
that.
so formal.
For
Yeah.
nanu, nanu, the thumb is in next to the hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
As
He's
you
so formal though.
intersect the other hand.
This would be Canadian